Hello, everyone. This is Talk by Tech, and this is a little something that I saw coming out a couple days ago. Didn't really want to talk on it because I didn't really see much of a reason to. But as of late, I've seen a lot of things float around, and I've kind of seen one perspective that nobody's really brought up or said anything about. So, as everyone knows, Raw this past Monday, CM Punk was in the parking lot. CM Punk was backstage. A lot of different people talked to him, and he was, of course, asked to leave. Once Paul Levesque basically spoke to Vince, Triple H. He spoke to Vince and asked and said, "Hey, no, you guys got to go." And I think a perspective that a lot of people weren't really understanding is this. Okay, being in the parking lot talking to people, that's cool. You know, everyone said he like buried the hatchet with Miz and all. Like they were cool, shook hands in public. I believe that was actually at the airport from reports. But you know, he went to Raw afterwards. He got on a plane. There were several people associated with Raw, producers, some talent, and things like that on his flight back to where he was heading. Went to Raw in Chicago. Went backstage. During the backstage, he shook hands and spoke with Triple H a little bit. Asked to stay. Triple H said, "Let me talk to Vince." Spoke to Vince. Vince said he's got to leave. So here's something in a perspective that I don't think a lot of people are really talking about that kind of needs to be brought up. You have to remember, Vince has been in this business at his level longer than anyone else. And I bring that up for a reason. The other thing I bring up is he has not lost very many, if any, wrestling-related lawsuits. Now, he's done some stupid things. He's getting in trouble currently. He's got a couple lawsuits running, but they're not really wrestling-related. They're just an old man with power. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter the industry. Replace wrestling with any other industry and you're going to find an old man doing the same things. Nothing unusual. Should be, but it's not. That being said, though, Vince knows a lot about this business, and I think something that a lot of people were overlooking and not really discussing is the fact that, yes, Vince did ask him to leave, but, you know, and everyone knows Vince had asked him to leave. It was Vince's call. But what a lot of people tend to leave out is Vince knows the business, and he knows having Punk there is not a good thing for a couple reasons. One, it does exactly what it did. It brings buzz to WWE's competitor, or partial competitor. So I'm going to go into that in another video. But two, it brings up a potential for Tony Khan to sue Vince. Now, with this information, had Vince not told him to leave, there is nothing stopping Tony Khan from suing Vince, saying, "No, you planned this. You told Punk to be there and you were going to have contract negotiations with him." Now it's up to Vince, or forces Vince to prove he didn't do that. So by telling Punk to leave, it's more a legality thing, if anything. And I feel like a lot of people have been discussing this, but that hasn't really been brought up enough, except by some old-time guys that really understand wrestling. Everyone says, you know, it's the hatred of Vince. They're always looking for these other loopy, more, you know, charismatic stories. But at the end of the day, Vince has been around long enough to know that he could get sued if Punk sticks around. So as soon as he found out, he made the call. Like, hey, look, Punk's got to go. You know, can't have the guy. Not a big deal. But I think that's just what is being overlooked here. And I don't know if Vince hates him or not. I'm sure he's not his best friend. He's made it pretty public. He doesn't want to necessarily work with him per se. But the main reason I think people have been overlooking here is Vince went, another company's talent is here. He's got to go. That's the end of it. Now, a lot of people like to bring up the Brooke Baker thing. Well, they had Brooke Baker in the crowd and blah, blah, blah. Well, Brooke was in the crowd. But you have to remember, when she was in the crowd, most people did not know who she was outside of smaller numbers of wrestling fans. Right now, most people in wrestling know Brooke Baker. It is a complete 180 from where it was at the time. And I feel they would do the same thing now if Brooke Baker was in the crowd. They certainly wouldn't pan the camera to her. They certainly wouldn't give her any camera time. Because now it would be perceived AEW star at WWE, and there'd be talk about AEW. So at the time when it was done, not many people knew her. Now, different story, it would be a different thing. Punk in wrestling has been a household wrestling name for we're looking at decades now. So different scenario. But yeah, I just feel like Vince told Punk to leave because I don't want Tony to sue me and say, hey, you're negotiating with one of my talent. That's just my thought. This has been Talk by Deck.